Welcome to the Pearls of Wisdom podcast, brought to you by Southern Jewelry News and Jewelry Store Marketers.
All right, everybody, thanks, and welcome to this edition of Pearls of Wisdom podcast. And today I have Jacob Dupuis with B&D Laser. So, Jacob, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
So, a couple of the things I want to go over with you right now is, well, for starters, tell us about B&D Laser.
Sure, absolutely. So B&D is basically a laser company, started as a service-first organization out in Rhode Island, primarily servicing the Northeast, kind of that jewelry industry, especially
lasers.
Servicing actually total equipment.
Okay.
So the way they started, Chuck, is they were liquidating equipment basically from businesses that were going out of business. They would take that equipment, they'd sell it to the jewelry market in New York, and then they would go and service that equipment.
Okay.
Now, around 1994, they went over to Europe and they actually found some of the first laser welders that were being developed. They brought some German lasers. Yes, sir. Yeah. So they brought it was Ciro Laser Tech. They brought the German laser over at the 1994 Providence trade show, and their kind of claim to fame there is they were the first that brought lasers for jewelry into the industry. Yes, sir.
Wow. It seems like they're only a year old. So.
Correct. Well, hey, they've been around for a while. They've definitely continued to develop. They brought it to the 95 JCK show, and that's where everything kind of exploded. A lot more people started bringing it in, but they wanted to keep that service first mentality that they had started the business with. And so, as you mentioned earlier, they really started with those relationships, and then they started developing that through the service of the laser welders.
Oh, cool. All right. So now y'all sell laser welder. So let's just hit the one question everybody always wants to know.
Sure.
What does a laser welder cost?
That's a great question. In those days, we would have said $40,000, $35,000, something like that. These days, it's come down a lot, and the lasers can do a lot more than they used to. Now you can get into a laser for $15,000 and have a laser that's really going to be able to do all of the things that a jewelry custom or repair shop would really need it to do.
All right, say you work for a store and the owner of the store has way too much money and he needs to buy a top-of-the-line laser.
Sure.
How much can he spend?
Absolutely. $35,000 is really that upper range before we get into the industrial, more like full silver working lasers. Whenever you get to the $35,000 range, you're talking about 3 shifts, being able to put a brick on the foot pedal and walk away for 3 days and it just be blowing and going. The really advanced technology is definitely more in the $20,000 to $25,000 range for single door jewelry stores.
Okay, so basically, if a jewelry store is wanting to get into a laser for the first time, you can do it on the low end at around 15.
Yes, sir.
But to really get one that's going to be an all-around purpose machine, you're going to spend in the 20 to 25 range.
I'd say about 19 to 20,000 is really your sweet spot there. Kind of on the upper end, as you mentioned. If there's bigger demand, silver work, things like that, maybe even like trophy work, die repair, things of that nature that you're really having to abuse the machine. Frankly, that's whenever you're going into 25,000. But on the lower end, what we've done at B&D, because we're a service organization, because we do all of the repairs, we actually have trade-in programs so that if somebody is upgrading their laser welder, they can trade that laser into us. Then we can take that laser, fully refurbish it, rebuild it, and then offer a used or refurbished laser welder for an under $10,000 price point.
Interesting. Now, do y'all have a fairly decent inventory often of that, or is that just one of those that is just hit or miss?
It's come and go. A lot of that is really, especially for students. We like to support the students of the industry right when they're getting out of school and they're starting their own trade. We like to offer those to them, but we typically sit on about 5 of those at any one given point. But to your point, it's hit or miss depending on what we have.
Yeah, well, that's an interesting. I never knew that if you're looking for a used laser welder, B&D would be a good place to look because y'all already refurnished it.
That's right.
But now first, before I get into my real point of my question, which is the repair side of it, what's the newest thing y'all have out there? Like what's the cool thing you want in a laser these days?
Absolutely. My favorite thing is the Evo X. That's my favorite model of laser that we have currently. It's a desktop laser. It's right at $19,000. It has 225 joules of power, enough water cooling to where you can work on it for 6 6 hours, 8 hours at a time without really worrying about overheating it, all in a desktop model.
Okay.
And then it has an onboard camera where you could actually record videos, so you could show somebody else exactly what you're doing and train somebody and have them rewatch a process at that video right at the laser. So it's really cool.
Interesting. Now, what exactly are the joules? Because if somebody's going to be looking for a laser, the word joules pops up all the time.
It's a hot topic, yeah.
Yeah.
It's very interesting, and there's a lot of nuance around that. Joule, at the very essence of it, is just a way that we measure power output. 225 joules is generally overkill for what you're doing. The way I like to think about it, you can use, say, the first lasers had maybe 20 to 30 joules, and we were able to do a lot of work, but silver was a little bit of a challenge.
Sure.
Once you started getting into the 50, 60 joules, silver became a little bit easier. Now we have a broader power range, a bigger power range overall, that allows you to work at the lower power range without maxing the machine out, which extends the longevity of the machine itself.
Yeah, my machine defaults at 9%.
Yeah.
But with silver, now something I want a lot of people to understand, if you wonder why you have to crank a laser up with silver, it is because silver has a much faster thermal energy transfer rate than white gold or platinum. So that's why you have to do it, is because when you hit with that laser, if you've got a ring, you hit the top with the laser, in a microsecond, all of that energy's down here.
Yep.
So it becomes tricky with a laser.
Sure.
And it was tricky with a torch.
And you need to crank up the power. Another big part of it is silver is so reflective.
Yeah.
Any polished metal, a lot of times you'll either have to kind of char it up, take a file to it just to mat it up, or actually take a Sharpie. A lot of people will have their Sharpies right there, so that light, because you're literally welding with concentrated light, can penetrate that metal and achieve the weld that you're looking for.
Cool. All right, so now the big question is, and on all of the jewelry, like Facebook groups and trade groups and everything, the biggest, most common question comes up is, my red light won't come on.
Yep.
And everybody's like, try this, try that. And my standard is to refer them to you.
Sure.
So I thought we'd do it in a podcast. So our lasers because there's so many different brands of them. One of the things we had talked about in the past was pretty much a laser is a laser is a laser.
Sure.
That there's a little different nuances in all of them, but for the most part, if my laser didn't work and I called B&D, are y'all going to be confused, or are you going to know how to troubleshoot whatever brand laser I have?
Sure. There's always nuances and there's always further ends of the spectrum. But to your point, laser equipment is laser equipment at the end of the day. And because we've been doing this for a very long time,
94.
Yes, sir. We generally understand the ins and outs of how laser equipment works and how to help. Right? It doesn't really matter how much the price point of lasers has come down. Even if it is a $15,000 laser, if it's a $15,000 paperweight, it doesn't do you much good.
Yeah.
So what we are there to do is to be that one call that you need to make to get all the parts, equipment, and service that you'll need to get your equipment back up and running. We do that in a couple different ways. We primarily start just over the phone. You call us, you say, hey, that red light isn't coming on. We say, hey, that big red button, the emergency stop, did you push that in on accident? Then we get to the next step.
And now, it doesn't matter what brand of the laser it is, correct?
That is
It
correct.
does not have to be a B&D laser.
That is a great point. Yeah, we service anything that we can. We're there to help, and our goal is really to support the jewelers and the jewelry industry. Even if it is a brand that we don't primarily carry, we oftentimes can help because some of the parts do cross over.
Yeah.
And even if we can't get the parts directly for you, if you can get the parts, we can typically walk you through installation and repair of that machine.
Okay.
But then beyond that, if the phone call isn't quite enough, what we'll usually do is we'll get on a video call and we'll just say, hey, do you have an iPhone or do you have an Android? Do we want to FaceTime or do we want to, Google call? And then we jump on that FaceTime call. We actually walk you through. We say, hey, open the cover like this, touch there, don't touch there, right? Mm-hmm. Test this for me. Okay, this looks like it might be your problem. Do you feel comfortable changing that part out? If you do, we'll overnight that part to you, try to keep as much as we can in stock, and then we'll walk you through how to put it in yourself. If you don't feel comfortable with that, we can schedule you for a service trip, or we can have you send that laser over to us so that we can repair it for you.
Okay, but in a nutshell, if the red light thing doesn't come on and you're just looking at it, or something's blinking, or you hit the foot pedal and it's just kind of weak little signal, that my first call would be to B&D.
401-781-4810. That's our number. Really, that's your one call that you should need to make. If we need to do extra stuff, like I said, if we need to schedule a plane ticket and we need to go out there and help you fix it in person, that's something that we're not opposed to doing. And because we were acquired by Stuller 5 years ago, and we are a Stuller company now, we have the full suite of equipment all the way through to wholesale service. So it's something that we really think about holistically for the lifetime of the equipment. We want to be there for you whenever you buy the laser, but if we weren't there for you when you buy the laser, and definitely if we were, we're going to service it and we're going to support it throughout the lifetime of that machine, so it isn't that $15,000 paperweight.
All right, so when your laser doesn't work, what's the phone number?
401-781-4810.
B&D Lasers, everybody. Now you know how to fix your laser. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Chuck.
Thanks for listening to the Pearls of Wisdom Jewelry Podcast. For more information about the show, please visit southernjewelrynews.com/podcast, brought to you by Southern Jewelry News and Jewelry Store Marketers. Make sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform so you can catch the next show. See you then.